Today's news and comment with Mark Larson. AM 1170, The Answer.
Charles Slepian is the CEO of the Foreseeable Risk Analysis Center, and he joins us here. Charles, you've been talking about airport security. You and I have been talking about it together for many, many years about these soft targets. And here in a baggage area on Friday, one of the biggest soft targets of all. Unfortunately, that's not the only place that can happen. You could also have that happen just as people pull up to a curb going into the airport, right? So a lot of different parts in this. How do you see it?
Well, Mark, this is one of the incidents that has occurred, which was completely foreseeable. There are places in this country, not around the world necessarily, but in this country, where you cannot carry a firearm into the terminal building, period. And for this to be a situation in which a deranged guy who traveled without any baggage other than his gun, all the way from Alaska to San Diego, was able to have the
Alaska to Fort Lauderdale. I mean, not San Diego, but Fort Lauderdale. Well, now here's the thing. Now he may be deranged. We don't know that.
Delivered to him.
Yeah.
So that he can take it in the men's room, load it, come out, and shoot everybody. This could be prevented. We've talked about a lot of things that have, questionable as to whether or not they could be prevented, but this one could be prevented. Simply say, no guns in the terminal building, no guns in the parking lot. Make it a federal offense because this is a federal installation, mandatory prison sentences, and about 2/3, if not 3/4, of the people carrying guns into the airport now would know they can't do it. Give them an option of checking that gun outside of the terminal.
Okay, but he could have checked it outside the terminal. Yeah, but Charles, couldn't he have checked it outside the terminal and still, if he has ammo, what about the ammo issue? Because once you pick up at baggage claim where you checked it, then, I mean, that's what he did. He apparently had the ammo there somewhere and was able to go to the restroom, what have you, and reload,
Mark,
and, you know.
He checked the gun and the ammo together, and that's the TSA regulation. You put it in a hard-sided box.
But you're allowed to do it together?
Yes, in the same container. As a matter of fact, you're directed to do it that way. And so when it gets there, you've got the gun, you've got the ammo, you load the gun, and you do what he did. This is sheer lunacy.
Now, where does the bubble, well, let's say where the check-in is, outside the airport. I'm thinking about Istanbul, and we're talking with Charles Slepian from the Foreseeable Risk Analysis Center. You can check his website at frac.com. But I could see the perimeter expanding and expanding. It's kind of like the security around the White House. You know, they shut down Pennsylvania Avenue on the one side, and they keep making it a bigger zone. But in Istanbul or in Narita Airport in Japan, you start getting the check-in or the check-over process way away from the terminal. Still hasn't stopped the bad guys from doing bad things.
You know, there is no absolute security that can be afforded citizens anywhere in a free society. But this is one of those situations where you are inviting somebody to ship the gun, get on the plane, pick up the gun when he gets off the plane in the terminal where he has the targets that he's looking for. Of course, they're all congregated there waiting to pick up their baggage. And he has the pick of the litter, so to speak. He discharges 3 clips loads of bullets, puts the gun down on the ground, and waits to be arrested or shot. Mm-hmm. I don't know whether or not he even bought a round-trip ticket. You know, we don't know answers to a lot of questions. It is a signal, it always has been, from TSA that if somebody checks in with a one-way ticket and no baggage on a long-distance flight, you have to really scrutinize them. Now, this is a guy who checked his gun. There's a record of his checking the gun. He's got a crime ticket. He should not have been allowed to even pick up the gun. But that's a particular instance. I'm talking about a general policy. The policy is no guns in the terminal building in the parking lot, but certainly not in the terminal building.
Yeah, I'm thinking about this. I was in Texas.
Children, visitors. Yeah.
Yeah, when I was in Texas a few weeks ago, and you get into places where you have a right to carry and that sort of thing. It's it's kind of startling when you see a note that says, it's kind of like, well, we know there'll be guns in the terminal, but they got to be legal and so forth. You'll see different postings there depending on the state laws as well. So you'd be in favor, even though you're a big Second Amendment guy, you'd be in favor of some new restrictions in light of what we saw happening on Friday in Fort Lauderdale.
I don't even look at this as a restriction. This is not part of the Second Amendment. This is not part of what the NRA is asking for. They're not screaming that people should be allowed to take a gun wherever they want to take the gun. There are public policy considerations. There are public safety considerations. You can't take the gun into a federal building. You can't take the gun into a schoolroom. There are private property operators who have signs all over the place. They're open to the public, but no guns allowed.
Yeah. You wrote the book. You wrote a piece, Charles Slepian, with us with the wonders of cell phones. Sometimes they, we get a little bit of a delay there. You wrote a piece a few years ago that was all about the need for pilots to. It was called "Give Pilots Guns," because armed pilots could have prevented some of the, or if not all, the 9/11 hijackings, or at least avoided the final result.
It was a little tongue-in-cheek, that piece. I wrote it because everybody was screaming about giving pilots guns, and the argument was whether or not it was safe for a pilot to have a gun. So what I was saying was, give the pilots the gun now that the doors are locked to the cockpit, and the pilot is instructed never to leave the cockpit. So if he's got a gun, good luck. Let's end the argument there. But train him, which is now supposedly happening, and give him that backup. I would create exceptions. And there are exceptions now. Law enforcement officers who are not performing their duty in the airplane can't carry their guns either. Mm-hmm. It's a very confined situation that you're in, with lots and lots of considerations of public safety out there that extends beyond the airplane, onto the terminal, into the baggage collection area. Some places, you can't take a gun into the airport at all. Let me just make one comment, which I think is very important. For every regulation that we have federally, we have then a state regulation, mm-hmm. we have a local regulation, mm-hmm. we have an airport regulation. It's insanity to try to conform to all of them. So what we're doing now is conforming to none of them. Did this guy have a permit to carry that thing, to possess it in the first place? I doubt it, but if he did, shame on us.
Well, and he was also discharged from the military, and not for the most satisfactory performance, too. So there are a lot of different dots to connect. The investigation continues, and meanwhile, we are still very vulnerable at U.S. airports, and we're also vulnerable on the tarmac itself. And you've been talking about that, Charles Slepian, sure, for many, many years. So if you're looking at where if you're a member of Homeland Security, if you're involved in a lot of these different organizations, and of course you have your own, the Foreseeable Risk Analysis Center, but where are you keeping an eye on? Are these still the same hot spots like tarmacs, like baggage areas, and what can people do about it? I mean, kind of at the mercy of just hoping somebody's not in your midst, because the politicians aren't exactly dealing with it.
You said it a little earlier. We live in a society today where we have a terrible incident on Friday, and on Monday it's already forgotten. Yeah. And there are interests in keeping that airport open. There is a bill that's been proposed, I understand. I heard it on the news the other day, where they want to make the Miami airport an open carry place. That means you don't even need a permit. As long as you keep it out in the open, you can carry your gun on your hip, like in the Wild West. That's in Florida. Yet Florida is one of 4 states in the country in which you're not permitted to carry a firearm in a terminal unless you fall into one of the law enforcement exceptions. Mm-hmm. And there are a number of them. But to encourage passengers who have no idea of what awaits them at the other end to check that firearm and then to retrieve it in a terminal, the minute you lay your hands on that firearm, even in the box, Mark, in New York, you are under arrest. You cannot retrieve that gun anywhere in the terminal. How people don't know that. Even the question of how would you bring the firearm up to the ticket counter and check it?
Right.
Technically, you're in violation of New York City gun carry law, New York State gun carry.
Right. So the only way to get it there, you'd have to actually ship it, wouldn't you? If you're going off, so let's say you're going hunting somewhere or whatever, to those kinds of states?
Yes, you have to do that, but keep in mind there are a number of rules regarding the shipment of firearms through any means at all. I mean, there is a federal statement. It comes from the Attorney General's office that advises people who live in a state where they have a carry permit and they are traveling through states where their permit is not recognized to carry this letter in their pocket, signed by an assistant attorney general, that says that under the federal regulations, as long as it is a continuous trip, you are permitted to carry that firearm with you. Now, that letter is not considered a pass. What that is it's a defense should you be arrested.
Yeah.
And you can still be arrested. And you may very well be arrested, and I can assure you in New York City you will be arrested. And then when you go to court, you have an affirmative defense. But
but then every state has different. We have something like 20,000 plus local, state, federal gun laws of one type or another, and the bottom line is the baddest of the bad guys don't exactly pay attention to any of them. So, unfortunately, restrictions are and this is the delicate balance. Restrictions are almost always imposed on people who are law-abiding, and there's the rub for lawmakers, who I don't want to call lawmakers because they make too many laws anyway. Charles, appreciate the insight as always. You can check out his website, Foreseeable Risk Analysis Center. It's FRAC.com. That's Charles Slepian. Thanks, Charles. Stay safe out there.
The commentary, by the way, is up on the website.
Yep, it's up there as well. That's right. Thank you much. We'll talk to you soon. Stay safe. AM 1170, The Answer, The Mark Larson Show. Our number, 888-344-1170.
AM 1170, The Answer.